Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Low to High podcast. I'm one of your hosts, John Sullivan. I'm here with my co-host,
Ann Evans. What's up, everybody?
There we go. Today's episode is featuring one Greg Beast 32, Greg Gurenlian. Last time I introduced Greg Keneally, I said Greg Gurenlian, and he said he wished. So we got the real thing. Yeah. Greg has literally too many accomplishments to name in the intro, so we're just going to run down the list as we go with our questions. We really appreciate you being on here, though. Thanks for taking the time out of the day.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I'm excited to do this. This will be fun.
Yeah. It will be. It will be. So like you said, your Ravens play in a little while, so you had to get the workout in, and then you took the time out to sit down with us, and we appreciate that, of course.
So why don't we just go ahead and jump into some questions? Why don't you just tell us a little bit about like how you got into the sport of lacrosse, your early days, you know, like when you first picked up a stick, and kind of like your favorite memories from that time period.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, I'm from the Philly area, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, and in that area, lacrosse is king. So you either wrestle or play lacrosse or both. And I happened to wrestle at a younger age, but I really wanted to play lacrosse at Springfield because that's what all the cool kids did. That was literally the reason I wanted to do it. But I was never allowed to play football growing up. I had Osgood-Slaughters at a young age, which is, people don't know, it's a degenerative issue in your knees just during puberty and stuff. So my parents never let me play tackle football. However, when I wanted to play lacrosse, they took me to the doctor, and the doctor had to sign off on it. And his niece played lacrosse, and he thought they were the same rules. So he okayed it, told my parents, don't worry, it'll be fine. My niece plays this sport. It's great. It's basically soccer with sticks, he said. And so we signed off on it, and my dad came with me, and we went to the meeting, and they started running down the list of equipment we had to get. And you could see my dad was kind of like, I don't know about this, but you know, I knew my dad hiddenly wanted to see me go out and play a sport like that. So we went and got all the played against sports, helmets and stuff. And my first game in high school, I couldn't catch and throw at all. So I was a freshman in high school at a historic program, and I got made fun of relentlessly. And I was just a skinny guy that was running around trying to earhole everybody on every ground ball. So I got a nickname, Greg Beast, as a joke by the older guys because I sucked. So I just tried to hit everybody, but I was this skinny little dude. And that's how I got that nickname. But as I got, the first year was really tough. And as you guys know, lacrosse is so hard. You can't fake lacrosse. And I think that's why I love it, right? You show up as just a tall dude in basketball. It's like, okay, like you can hang.
You can get some boards. Yeah.
If you're a freak athlete in football, like that's what it takes to be a football player. But in lacrosse, you can't do anything unless you have the stick as an extension of your body. So it was really tough getting made fun of every day when you're a naturally athletic person. You're used to being good at stuff. So I almost quit. And I tell people all the time, it's important if they haven't heard the story. There was an assistant coach, Rick Johnson at Springfield, and he was the defensive coordinator. And I played JV the whole year, and I sucked. But I was decent at faceoffs. It was like I had a knack for it. And I was planning on telling the coaching staff that I was going to quit. And after the last practice of the year, before I even had a chance to do that, Coach Johnson put his arm around me after sprints and said, look, I know this was a tough first year for you, but I guarantee you, if you stick with this sport, you'll light the world on fire. And I remember him saying that. I remember where I was standing. And I went home and told my parents, I was like, I'm actually going to stick with this. And if it wasn't for that moment, I don't think I ever would have played lacrosse again. So I learned at a young age the effect that a coach can have on a kid. So that's how I started.
And we're still in the growing years of our sport, and you're one of the defining names. Like, there's no reason to dance around it. You are. So, and it's so cool to think back on, like, the history of the NBA and leagues like that, and see those guys' names and realize they came first. And it's so weird that it almost didn't happen for you because you were like, man, this just isn't for me. And that's why this sport is so cool. You have to stick with something. You have to be one of those people who wants to get better more than they like are upset about failing, because
you're right.
Yeah, it's just, you fail a lot at first. Like you get hit in the chest with a ball, you get hit in the head. It just isn't fun.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
You're right.
But you said something earlier that had me on a train of thought, but now I've lost it. But anyways, what was like getting into college like for you? Because you went to a historic program, you played good teams. But now you were stepping into the big boys, like you didn't go to a bad school by any means, so you were playing with the real big boys.
It's funny. I get asked all the time, like, what was your recruiting like? And my whole family went to Penn State. Like my dad's side, all my aunts, uncles, and cousins went. So I was going to Penn State football games in an RV from the time I was 6. And I obsessed over Penn State football, like especially when they were like juggernauts. I used to freak out if we only won by like 40. So when I had no plan in high school. I was a decent student, but I had no plan on how I was going to go to Penn State other than just play sports. And then I was going to be a student and hopefully get a good SAT score. So, in my mind, I always wanted to go to Penn State. But when I started playing lacrosse, it was just to be one of the cool kids and to hit people. There was no plan after that. And when I started getting better at it, like I said, after that first year, I was totally that dude who showed up to parties with his lacrosse stick. I had it in my hand all the time. I was hitting the wall all the time. My parents never had to tell me to go outside and practice. And we didn't have club ball back then. So it was just me getting as good as I could and shooting and being obsessed with it. And then all of a sudden, after my junior year, that first, after my senior year, because back then you didn't get recruited till your senior year. And
it was from high school too, right? It wasn't you did not play any club, right?
No.
Yeah.
I played club after college when I would go back home during college. I'd go back and play for Duke's lacrosse, during summer ball and stuff. That was it. In Springfield back then, our high school team, we would play year round. So we would play in indoor and we would play at champ camp and stuff like that as a team. So when we went back then, you went to 205, top 205 and champ camp, and that was it. And if you made the all-star game, you were going to college. It's not like now where there's 3,000 showcases a weekend every weekend. So we went to those tournaments and I made the all-star game. And then the week I got home, my phone just started ringing. And that first couple, letters came in. I was learning about colleges. Now, look, I'm old as hell. So that's when we had AOL and you had to go online and like figure out how to learn about colleges on your own. And to my parents' credit, neither one of them went to college. So for them, they were like, look, we don't understand this recruiting thing. So it's all you. So I completely handled my own recruiting. However, there was quite a turn in the way my dad looked at lacrosse. It went from like, here's your play it again sports pads to college letters. What do you need? You need a stick? So now it's an investment, right? I remember when I got that Penn State letter from Lars Tiffany, because he was the assistant at the time, it was like I was shaking. I couldn't believe it because I was like, oh my God, this is how I go to Penn. This is how I get to Penn State.
Yeah. It's
so
my ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
My golden ticket. Grandpa, look.
So I kind of had a recruiting, like back then you actually went on your official visits before you made a decision.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to go on 5 official visits as a high school kid and go party at colleges for a few times. But I started to learn about a lot of different schools and different types of schools. And Towson was really close to taking it for me. And then I had one last official visit to Maryland, but Coach Lars called me that week and was like, we got to know within the next 24 hours because there's another guy. I remember getting off the phone and being like, and my dad's like, you better commit. So I called and committed, and I learned, of course, a year later there was another guy.
Of course. That's like the realtor saying,
Maryland trip.
Yeah, that's like the realtor saying, someone else wants this house. I mean, hey, we got a guy coming to pick up the car.
So it was a great move on his part. But going to Penn State was like the pinnacle for me. I knew almost nothing about Penn State lacrosse. I had no clue. I just knew that was my dream school. And when I signed my NLI, that was like my dream come true for me. So going to college to play lacrosse was never a thing until after my senior year of high school. After my junior year of high school.
Yeah, well, that's crazy. That's crazy how you started so, I don't know, started at the bottom. Now we're here,
Yeah, and I actually, I got my gear from Play It Again too for my first practice ever in 8th grade, and so there's still time for me to become you, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that ship
plenty of
hasn't
time,
sailed. I don't know if
still
Penn
hope.
State is still looking for a 24-year-old with maybe a year of eligibility left. I'll have to check the records.
You know
but-
what? Who knows? With the way the pandemic's going, who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah,
honestly.
really. But actually, circling back real quick, and then we'll move on to the rest of your career. But I think it's hilarious. I remember when you mentioned your dad. I think it's funny that like your dad went to that meeting with you, because I can see him. Helmet, okay, the ball's kind of hard. Gloves, well, they really care. Elbow pads, shoulder pads. Hold on a second. Wait.
What do they need this
Yeah.
for?
Yeah. So that's
And you know what? He didn't say a word to my mom.
no.
So first game my mom ever came
Yeah.
to, I leveled a kid near the sideline and she lost her mind and she's like, "What did you do?" And my dad's like, "No, they're allowed to do that."
Yeah, they're allowed to hit. Yeah, the first lacrosse game my family ever saw, I was in, and a kid who was of equal size to me in 8th grade. I'm 6'6" now, so like when I was in 8th grade, we were like 6 foot, and the two of us ran I scooped the ground ball, and I didn't know enough to like dodge the collision yet, so like we just ran at each other from the box, and he was a pole, and we just ran into each other like right at the midfield line, each of us moving as quick as we could, and everyone in my family was just like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
Yeah.
The car crash.
Yeah, it was truly just like a head-on car crash.
Yeah.
Neither of us knew to move.
For me, it's just like I hit a brick wall.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so small. It's just like when someone runs into me, I'll just like literally go
Bounce
flying
off of
across the field. One time I was carrying the ball up the field. This girl comes out of nowhere, just like blindside hits me. My goggles flew to the other side of the field, and I was like, "No call, really?" It was crazy.
Yeah, but that's so funny that your dad was like under the impression, yeah, it's the same rules as women, it's just soccer with sticks. They but then he's
Yeah.
like, shoulder pads, hold on a
Definitely saw
second.
his facial expression change from like to this. Like by the end, he was like squinty, like
Yeah, squint,
what am
like
I
kind of
getting
head,
myself into?
yeah, head a little to the side, like, wait a second now.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your transition from college into the MLO and then into the PLO? I know that's a
Yeah,
big broad
so when
spectrum.
I
was-
No, it's fine. So when I was in college, I got recruited as a midfielder, not a face-off specialist, and that was just becoming a thing. You would start to hear, oh, who's Alex Smith? I hear, who's Jack DeVilliers, who's Andy Corno? Like these were names that were starting to pop up as guys who just faced off and then ran off the field. But I was asked to be a midfielder. So it just so happened, and this is what the Quint Kesnicks of the world don't get, is you don't become a face-off specialist because you suck at lacrosse. You become a face-off specialist because you happen to be the best face-off guy on the field. And your coach isn't going to be like, all right, well, go put the other guy in just for a face-off and go catch a break. It's like, no, keep taking them because you're getting us possessions. So every year at Penn State, I transitioned. My first year, I was kind of like the backup man down guy. Then I would be on rides and clears. And then my next year I was playing midline. And it's tough because as you take on more of a face-off load, especially back then when it was, much more of a physical face-off.
Oh yeah.
And half the guys out there were cheating anyway.
It wasn't technique based. Like now
Yeah.
it's technique based. Who has quicker hands?
Exactly. And back then everybody stood up, right? So everyone was doing stand-up and you didn't have some mangled stick. You used a regular head. You'd pop the ball out and go play offense. So I played man up and face-offs at Penn State for the most part. And it was this really sweet gig because you play like 5 minutes total a game. But
you're still in the books.
And you're like kind of a stat machine. Yeah, you get your goal or two in there. But when I got to the pros, that's when I became a face-off specialist. And it was new for me. And I was very raw. I had, Chris Britton, who's now actually the football coach at Springfield. He was a face-off legend, and he taught me how to face off, like the basics of it. And I just kept doing what he said to do throughout my career in college because I never took face-offs as like my specialty. I was a lacrosse player, so I spent way more time on the wall and shooting. And then when I got to the pros, it was like only face-offs, and I'm in practice. Like, what do you mean? I have to sit in the corner and just face off? This sucks. So I would drive to Rochester after I got drafted and just do that. And it was a serious learning curve, but I realized very quickly that I was generally at least as athletic, if not more athletic than most of the guys I was going against. So that's all I depended on. And at the time, my goal wasn't to be a professional lacrosse player. My goal was to be a professional strength coach. And I was being mentored, and I was being prepared to go for my master's at Penn State. And I was an assistant strength coach. So I played lacrosse on weekends. And the fact that I was playing pro was fun and awesome, but it was I thought it was, I was like, this could end any day. And then when I got hurt in 2011, when I blew my knee out, that is when I really took it seriously. Because I remember sitting on the couch at home. I was actually watching the Women's World Cup. And I remember sitting there going, wow, like, I would be devastated if I never played lacrosse again. Like, I don't think I really took this talent, this gift that I have, and I applied it as much as I could. And that was the summer I wrote the Faceoff Academy system. What I did was I took the biomechanics I learned and applied as a weightlifting coach, and I just applied them to faceoffs, because with faceoffs, the ball's always in the same position, and it's different than every other position. You can base everything on angles and momentum and leverage. So I wrote that system, and then I came back in 2012 after my knee injury, and I had by far the best season I'd ever had. And then every kid, I started doing like one-on-one face-off lessons here and there with kids, and every time I taught somebody something, they killed it. So me and Jerry and Chris started the Faceoff Academy, and it kind of took off and just gained a lot of momentum from there.
So the Faceoff Academy was one thing I wanted to touch on for sure, because obviously huge part of your branding, personal and otherwise. Yeah. But so yeah, you'll like this story. In high school, our team wasn't sanctioned by the state. I don't know if Indiana high school states yet sanctions men's lacrosse. I don't think they do because of the Title IX rulings. But so we got a check for $850 a year from the school, total for the team. That was it. Like, that was their help for us.
That'll buy
like
a bucket.
Like 5 helmets.
Yeah, or 2 buckets of balls. That's what it usually went to. It was like 2 or 3 buckets of balls. But that year, you were doing the Faceoff Academy in Indy, and we spent like half our budget to send 3 of our guys up there to go to the Faceoff Academy. It was that important that we knew how to face off. And I think I find that cool, because like that's your thing.
And did the guys get markedly better from that?
Our one guy was really good to begin with, but yeah, the other 2 improved significantly. So like when he was gassed and they had to go take one, because he was also our starting midi. It was like me, him, and another guy were our starting middies, and then I also played pole and attack, just rotated through the whole game. So like we were just a collection of like 5 players who could play all positions, and he got really good at facing off, and part of it was your academy. It definitely helped him, but it certainly helped the other 2 people. So
well, that's great to hear.
Yeah, I just thought
I'm
you
glad
found
you told
that
me
cool.
that. That's awesome.
Yeah, but so now you touched on it a little bit about starting the Faceoff Academy with the other guys, but how did you guys get together? You wrote it, you said, while you were, hurt, but then how did you pitch it to them, and how did you decide who else you wanted to do it with?
So Jerry actually was, I don't know if you remember lacrosse forums, but lacrosse forums used to be a thing.
A big deal.
And the biggest, I don't know who started it, but somebody somewhere, when I was a Dragons player in San Fran, somebody started Greg Beast fan thread or something. And I hopped in one time because I saw it. I was like, hey guys, and everyone's like, oh, he's talking to us.
He's here.
So I would literally just answer questions. It was basically Instagram before Instagram. And then it took on a life of its own. And then someone renamed it like the Greg Beast Mega Thread. And Jerry was like a forums legend, because I remember seeing videos popping up of this, this guy, I think his name was like RIT something. And I'm like, who is this dude posting like face-off videos without shoes on, like in all of his little like video? And he ended up reaching out to me and asked if I could work with him. And so I worked with him. He came to New York City. We met. We worked together before he went back to RIT, and he killed it at RIT. And then when I put in a couple calls to Rochester, hopefully in hopes of trying to help him get a tryout, and he made Rochester. So we stayed in contact. We talked all the time. And then I remember reaching out to him one summer, and the idea was like 2010, because Jerry and I became friends at that point. We played with each other and against each other in the league. And I remember telling him, during the summer as a strength coach, a lot of my clients leave because I was in New York City. So a lot of them go on family vacations, et cetera. They go to the Hamptons, whatever. So I was like, during the summer, let's coach Faceoffs. Let's do like a cool, like 6-week tour, and we'll go to different areas of the country, and we won't do overnight camps like everybody else is doing. We'll just do like 2.5-hour clinics and really help kids and then get out of there. So I was like, but what we should do is create a website that's like lacrosse forums and just make it like, and that should be our basic idea, is make it a lacrosse forum, but just for Faceoff guys. And that's what I thought it was going to be. So I was like, we should make it like Faceoff University or whatever. And he was friends with Chris Mattis, and they were like, well, what if we just made it a clinic business and we called it the Faceoff Academy? And I was like, well, that's cooler than what I came up with. That's definitely cooler. And thank God they did that, because lacrosse forums and that whole, thing, part of the internet basically closed down like 2 years later when Instagram and social media was created. So we went on a 6-week tour, and the idea was Chris would handle the back end and the logistics because he's amazing at that stuff. Jerry, because he owns Pro Athletics, would take care of all like the swag. And then I would write the system and kind of take the lead at the coaching clinics. And all three of us would travel to every clinic, and it would be a really fun time. So they helped me tweak the system so it was easier to convey to the kids. And because sometimes I get a little too nerdy and technical with my verbiage. And we created a lexicon for Faceoffs because that had never been done before. Everything used to be like, well, this is what works for me, or basically everyone taught cheating back then, right? So we showed up as these people that everyone hated. We were like, we're going to get rid of cheating. And we ran 6 clinics, and they were massive successes. And then everybody asked us to keep coming back and keep coming back. And then we started helping kids on a weekly basis. That's where draw days came from. And then we started bringing on more coaches wanted to work with us that we had worked with. And next thing I knew, I was selling the company that I had started called Brawlic Strength. I sold that off because I didn't have time for it anymore. And we went full-time FOA. And it kind of just took on a life of its own. And now, people, even I say, I laugh all the time, even the people who hate me the most use our verbiage. Kids are like, oh, defensive draw. I'm like, that didn't exist before 2012. All of this stuff that's common vernacular now didn't exist before we created that system. So I'm very proud of that, for sure.
Literally like reinvented the modern face-off.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So how did you like go from, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the way your camps work now, it's like you guys have like individual coaches in just like different parts of the country, right?
Yeah, so we have 9 coaches total. We have 8 men, and then Sammy Joe Tracy is our director of the Draw Control Academy.
Okay.
And we all are based in different states, and we run weekly training sessions within our area so that we have a group of kids that are getting, weekly work. And then we all travel for at least 2 weekends a month. It's a little dicey with the pandemic, but for the most part, we do 2 weekends a month. Yeah, and we call them main events. And the main event is basically we offer to go to any town who hosts us, and we'll do a free 30-minute coaches and referees clinic because we want the coaches and refs to learn what we're teaching to do.
Oh my God, yes.
And then
refs specifically.
And you know what? 10% of the time people take us up on that, which is shocking. And then we do a 2.5-hour main event, and then we head out, and our goal is to train the system all over the place. And from day one, we work with college coaching staffs for free. We'll travel to a college and we'll work with them, which has opened up massive recruiting pipelines for us. So coaches trust the way we teach it because they've seen in their own staff and their own kids how well it works. And then, and we've always been out in front of stuff because, well, one reason is when it comes to what we would have wanted as kids, right? I sit there and I go, man, what would I have wanted? Oh, like a national showcase. That would have been sick. Let's make that happen.
That's exactly how I coach. Yeah. What would I have loved to hear?
As coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other side of it is when there's a rule change, no one ever asks the face-off guys, of course, right? So we always have to be privy to that so we can tweak the system and make sure our kids are out in front of it. So this year, when they changed the rules from knee down to stand up only, look, there's only 2 or 3 of us who faced off standing in the pros and with success, and we're all FOA guys. So we just rewrote the system and got to work with the kids. And, instead of sitting around on Instagram and sulking and crying, we just got to work. And our kids, that's why so many of our guys are recruited already in this recruiting cycle. So we try to stay out in front of everything with our guys.
Yeah, what you were saying about, just immediately going with it and changing, I think that's another example of just being willing to adapt and change and not give up because, I mean, very few rules benefit defensemen and and face-off guys. None of the new rule changes. Oh, they can dive now? Sick. Cool, because that's going to be a push on me, isn't it? None of them benefit us ever. So, we have to just roll with them and be like, all right, what do I do now? Okay, I have to change this. Because if you just complain about it, you get left behind. It's same with the stringing rules when those changed. Like a lot of my teammates were like, no, I want to keep using U's. And they would use them all the way up until our first game and then change to straights. And it's like, well, what are you gonna? Yeah, now you can't. Yeah, now you can't throw. What are you gonna do? So.
Yeah, and I always say, like, as a father too now, like, how am I gonna raise my kid? Right? Am I gonna sit and whine and complain online? First off, no rules committee members gonna be like, you know what, guys? I saw Greg crying on Twitter.
I read Greg's notes app.
I think we should change our mind.
No, now parents are always sending my kid has worked so hard. Look, are you telling me that your kid worked hard? Because I coach him. I get that.
Yeah.
But my job is to make sure that doesn't go in vain. So here's the new system. Let's get to work. I'm here for him. Yeah. And that's the way we always approach everything, as like a big brother or fatherly way of going about things, because we're also very serious about setting an example. And if I'm going to work with your kid 2, 4, 6 hours a week for 5 to 6 years, I better be a good influence in him, because if I'm a bad influence, then I'm going to make a bad impression. So I take that very seriously. And that's why when we bring on Faceoff Academy coaches, other people might hire a guy for a clinic or two, or just send somebody in to do something. But we vet our coaches very harshly, even guys that we've worked with for years. First off, you had to have been coached by our system to prove it works. So you're a walking symbol of the fact that what we teach works. And then it's a character thing, and your ability to convey stuff to younger guys and to be a good example, even when there's pressure. And that, because we only hire full-time coaches, we don't hire guys for a day. So a lot of it goes into more than just blowing whistles. I think everybody's like, oh, you charge X, Y, and Z for a clinic. You're like, I work every hour of the day, all week.
Mm-hmm. This is my business.
So while you are mad about the price of a clinic, I'm on the phone at 9:30 at night calling college coaches instead of being with my family for your kid. And I don't charge extra for that. So that's something that people have to understand too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not quite at that level where I'm at 9 at night on the phone, but like I do private lessons right now, because in this area specifically, defense is just like stick on the hip, run up to them, and then put it out kind of in front of you. So like, no footwork, none of that. Like it's all, you get to college, and then they're supposed to teach you that there is what most coaches around here kind of view it as. So I do lessons, but I never hear the end of, you want to charge that? Well, does your kid want to play college or not? Because like I'm going to teach him how to be ready to get into the college system, and then just have a few more things tweaked and be a monster. So like it's up to you and your kid. But I always ask him, do you want your kid to be good, or do you want him to be great? Because he'll be good if he keeps playing in the regular high school and club system. But if you want him to be great, have somebody who really had to learn the fundamentals to be good, because I'm large and not the quickest of guys. Like I had to learn the fundamentals. So I'm really good at passing those along.
And I think one of my biggest rules in life in general is to know your worth. Right. Yeah. And I learned that as a strength coach when I was trying to build a business in New York City, which is a very hostile environment to do so.
Yeah.
I knew what my worth was. I knew the expertise I was bringing, but even more so, I knew the amount of effort I was going to give you day in and day out. My clients all became, I had a book of 30 to 40 clients as a strength coach, and, I was going to their weddings and bar mitzvahs, and, they knew that I was there for them all the time. And that's how these families should feel. And for you, not only are you a coach, but you're an advocate. You're going to make those phone calls. You're going to try to make sure the kid gets better.
Oh, yeah.
And I always say, people, like, I don't go into a BMW dealership and try to get a Prius price. Like, I know.
Right.
Oh, Lord.
You want a Prius, then you go pay for a Prius. And, for me, if I'm not going to haggle with you, this is what it costs. And I'm awesome at what I do. I only have one thing I'm good at. So this is the thing. So that's the price. And that's, but at the same time, it's also important to understand there are people out there that can't afford certain things.
Oh, no.
And
yeah, that's
we have a very strong rule. I will never have a kid miss out on something because of funds. I didn't grow up. I wasn't a prep school kid. Nothing against that. My father was an electrician. My mom was a librarian at the elementary school. I didn't grow up in those kinds of situations. So I know what it's like to miss things if you don't have money. So yeah, if like, for instance, those 3 kids who came to our event, you guys paid for them to come. If your coach reached out to me and said, hey, look, a couple of these kids, they barely have the funds to suit up or whatever. Yeah. Look, man, we'll work it out. We will find a way to work it out.
And that's what lacrosse needs. It started with me staying after for a half hour until the sun went down and showing them things on the field because they asked me to, and I was their coach. And I was like, yeah, of course. And then their parents were like, well, what if we do a lesson on the week? And then I listed a price, and I was like, you guys are my first people. And they were like, oh, that's way too much money. And it was like, well, I mean, I kind of know what other people pay for lessons. I know what my sister paid for basketball lessons with people who don't have the skills that I have. I feel like this is pretty fair. It's not $150. It's $50. For an hour of my time plus the 35 minutes of me driving there and back, I feel like I'm being fair. Yeah. So, but that's definitely what the sport needs is more people to just step forwards and
be selfless.
Yeah, be selfless. And so it's cool to hear that you guys do that, especially with something like Facing Off, because that can be a kid's ticket.
Absolutely.
That can be a kid's ticket to the next level.
Right? We all learned that from experience as a coaching staff, that what this position in the sport can do. And like I always say, we can't just say grow the game, and then charge exponential amount of money for something. We have guys out there that'll charge an X amount for this, and then it's like 5 times the amount for a private lesson. And then, oh, you want me to recruit for you? Well, here's this new recruiting thing I'm doing, and it costs X amount up. It's like at some point you have to decide when enough is enough, and then you try to grow the game accordingly. And I don't think we're going to get there if we're constantly putting premier price tags on every single thing. So knowing your worth is important, but at the same time, it's time to give a little too. You have to give a little. This sport, no one's bigger than it. Like, it's a gift, right? The game of lacrosse is a gift to us. And that's why I love the community. Someone just tweeted yesterday, Brent, hey, 2 years ago, a guy just showed up to the field in my, where my kid was shooting, and started teaching him lessons, and they were shooting together for an hour, and then he left. And it was Brent Adams. And I was like, that doesn't surprise me at all. Brent Adams is that dude.
Oh, yeah.
And most lacrosse players are like that. We want to share what we know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, most people in a sport enjoy helping other people get better at that sport, but lacrosse is one of those ones where we feel like we're such a small community. Yeah. And definitely, like on other episodes, I've talked about just going into Dick's Sporting Goods in Indiana and being like, just standing there and looking at the new gear and seeing a kid and mom walk up, and they're just like, what do we do? And I get him his whole gear set, and then I go home and string his stick, and then I tape it too, and then I get him ready to go out for his first practice, make sure his helmet fits right. I was doing that kind of thing in high school because I just cared that the area got better at the sport.
And you know what? It would have meant everything to you if someone did that to you too when you were a kid.
Oh, it would have.
That's basically paying it forward is what this sport's about right now. And I think we forget that sometimes because certain folks see dollar signs and they don't want to think about anything else. But most people in our sport get that. And if we're only going to get to a point where our sport is bigger, if we continue to remember that, for sure.
That's one thing that I love about this community. Like, coming from an area, I'm from South Carolina, and lacrosse is not huge in South Carolina at all. And so, we didn't have a club team in my area until I was a sophomore in high school. And so, coming from an area where it's not that big and, being able to, play in college and have a platform where I can talk to cool-ass people like Greg Beast, that's cool,
it's pretty sweet. We enjoy this. Yeah, it's cool. It's kind of why we started this. We started it to give you guys a chance to, show off your personality more. You have that platform, but other players, especially in college and stuff, they're still wearing the helmet, and people only see them from where the camera point of view is. So, but switching gears, is that your USA helmet behind you?
Yep, sure is.
So is that, because I feel like if I got a chance to wear the country's name on my chest, that would be the top of the line thing I could ever do. Is that your biggest lacrosse achievement would probably be playing for the U.S. team? And what did that mean to you to know that you were a part of something like that?
Yeah, I think it's important. You know, Ray Lewis is my favorite athlete, and he always spoke about making your, you know, leaving your legacy with things. That's something people can't take. You know, I have records and stuff, but someone will probably beat those at some point, right? But like the memory of winning a gold medal for your family, I mean, for your family and your country, with a group of guys who have worked together for that common goal from completely different backgrounds, coached by a staff that, you know, didn't know everyone when it started, but they respected everybody, meant everything. And especially in 2014, the core group of that team, for the most part, was part of the silver medal team that didn't get it done. So I think having that opportunity to redeem ourselves and win one together was a massive deal. And I'll always have that with me. So yeah, that was pretty incredible. And of course, you know, when you do that with USA on your chest, it means a lot. And I always tell people, like, when it comes to USA, like, you are proud to be from the USA, but you're also, when you're representing the country the right way, it's because you're trying to create a situation in what the country can be, right? And I think there's no doubt that we're not quite where we should be right now.
No.
But when you're over there in Israel and you're battling, you're like, for these 2 hours, we can be what USA should represent. We can be hardworking. We can be unified. We can, you know, and you have that sense of purpose in your mind and that pride when you're listening to the anthem or when you're carrying your flag. The pride goes with what we were designed to be. So that's where it really came from. That's a swelling pride of achieving something together by being what you think this country should represent.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably start sobbing when I saw the uniform with like my number, USA, you know, because I mean, you represent 300 million people. Even if not all of them know that you're over there representing them right now or care, because I mean, let's face it, there's a large amount of baseball fans.
5,000 people cared.
But I mean, I cared a lot, so you know, at least all of us cared a lot. Yeah, no, but I mean, like it would just be so cool to know that you represent your country, the country that everybody knows. Everybody in the world knows of us, and they're pretty aware. And
for better or worse.
Yeah, for better or worse. But it's that just is such an immense amount of pride, I'm sure. And you know, I just wanted to touch on that because that's a huge accomplishment in and of itself. And we're running through your list.
Yeah.
So.
And I think also being like the old guy on the team and being able to play with Trevor, right, was even more.
That's cool.
So, and it was cool because in 2014, it was like I was there with Chris Eck, and it's like we were the guys. Like we were in our primes. We were smashing everybody else in professional lacrosse. But this time around, it was like, first off, I didn't think I'd ever be in this situation again. I thought I had my shot and I blew it. But then when time continued to go and I continued to play at a high level, I knew what my purpose was. I was very grateful for Coach Danowski and Tierney and those other guys to have the vision of let's bring Greg in. He's still at a competitive height of his career, but the new guy is also his coworker, his colleague, and someone that he trained. I knew that I was going to kind of like, he was going to be 1A and I was going to be 1B. The first time in my career that was the case, but I knew I had to do my duty on the field, but also help Trevor with my experience so that he could play at his highest level too. And that was what made it even cooler. Being kind of like that guy to back up Trevor was really cool for me.
Yeah, that is pretty sick. Before we move on to our segments, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your, what was it, like 2-year run in the PLL and give us a little bit of insight?
Well, this year was year 2, so it was only 1, right?
Yeah.
You were
1 year.
Okay,
yeah.
I was going to ask about that too, but she got to it.
Yeah. When I was, so after 2016, because I averaged almost a surgery every 2 years playing professional lacrosse. And in 2016, I played with a broken foot the whole year. And I got it fixed. And I remember my wife being like, look, I've been a good soldier. She's like, you've won a championship. You've been an MVP. You own every record. Like, what else do you have to prove? And I was like, I just feel like I have more to give. Like, I don't, like, this is my identity. Like, if I stop playing, I don't know what's going to happen to me. So she's like, look, you get 2 more seasons. And you can either go 2017, 2018 in the MLL, or you can go 2017 and then try to play in the World Games. And I had just played a scrimmage. That following weekend, I went down, and I thought it was going to be like my last weekend playing with Team USA because we were playing in an event down at IMG. And after that weekend, I came back and I was like, I think I still got it. Like, I think I can make Team USA if I make a run at this again. So I agreed to only play one more year in the MLL. And I thought that was going to be the end of pro lacrosse for me so I could focus on the World Games. And after the gold medal game, I thought that's how I was going to end my entire playing career, walking off the field in Israel. But I know Paul had been, there were whispers, and I remember Paul being on some video conferences about this new league. So I offered to him and Tom, when the idea came out about them starting this new league, I was like, I would love to write the face-off rules and be part of this with you guys, because I think I can help a lot. Yeah. And then as we got the rules cemented down, then Tom popped the question, and it was like, would you want to play? Dude, don't say that too loud. My wife will stab me.
Oh, man.
But I still remember they offered me the contract. I printed it out, and I kind of like came around the living room while I was like, hi, sweetheart. I have a proposition. But she agreed because she was just like, look, it would be important for you to be part of this new thing. And I told her, I was like, this is going to be the future of professional lacrosse. So I got a 1-year deal. And thankfully, even though I got injured again, I tore my hamstring and tried to play through it. I came home. She was like, you didn't learn anything, did you? You haven't learned anything. But I was lucky enough to heal up enough for the end of that season, play at a high level. And it was very important for me to get out of lacrosse when people remembered me playing at a high level. I didn't want to be that guy who hung on, because in faceoffs, once you are too old, it happens fast, and you go like 10%, 20% out of the league. So I never wanted that to happen. So I was still above 50% face-off guy in the pros, doing a good job, and we made it to the championship game. Of course, we didn't win that game, but I remember going out that last face-off and looking around the stadium and being like, how lucky am I, man? Like, I knew that was my last game. No one else really knew, but I knew, and I was like, this is incredible. And, I'm lucky that I got to do that for so long. I played 14 years as a professional lacrosse player. Basically, half of my life, I played professional lacrosse. So that means a lot to me. And I got to play in some incredible moments. I got to achieve a lot of things. I think the most important thing is I got to reach my potential in something. And that's what I'm always, as a coach, like when you tell a kid, look, I experienced being as good as you could humanly be for yourself, not anybody else. I maxed my potential out in one thing. It's a really special thing to feel. So, I found my thing, and that's why I'm always going to be grateful for the MLL and the PLL. I'll never badmouth one of the leagues. I would not be who I am if I never was drafted into professional lacrosse. Yeah, no one ever would have heard of me. So it's a very grateful thing.
Yeah, you can't forget where you came from, and I know that's kind of part of the storyline, but I just don't understand forgetting where you came from. I mean, leagues can coexist, so I'm glad to hear that you're not gonna, ever turn your back.
No,
I see the Lizards helmet up there too.
Yeah, man. Look, I'm not gonna. That's 99% of my career is that Lizards.
Yeah, you wore that. Yeah.
No one was like, oh yeah, Greg Gurenlian, he'll be playing for the Redwoods one day. It didn't exist yet.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
These records that I have tattooed on my arm, like these are what I did playing in the MLL, and I'm grateful for that. Now, could they have done a lot of things better? Of course. That's why there's a second league now. But they're pushing each other to be great now, and I am so grateful. And like I said, yeah, I love that there's 2 leagues. I hope they figure it out. I hope that things can evolve, and they will. But there's a lot of good people that deserve the chance to play professional lacrosse, and because of the PLL, a lot more guys were able to do that. So I'm glad other guys were able to realize their dream too. So it's important.
Yeah, it leads to many more people playing. Because now the PLL pulled a lot of MLL players. Now there's a lot of vacancies.
Yeah.
So
guess what?
Look, 150 guys overnight went to the PLL.
Yeah, that's 150 spots.
150 guys never would have gotten a chance in the MLL.
Yeah, exactly.
If it wasn't for that. So good for them.
Yeah.
And I think both leagues are doing what they believe is best. And look, the PLL is a shooting star. Like it's going to continue to do its thing. We're probably going to see another team. It's growing, it's bigger. What they were able to pull off this summer with the pandemic is insane. So you have minds, and look, I give Paul and Mike so much credit, because it would have been easy for Paul to just keep doing his thing, get his money, and then move on.
Yeah, keep his
life.
keep his
He
brand
started
deals.
the league, and that means you now have went from the player to also the man.
Mhm.
So you're bridging those two things, and you're going to get hated on because the Atlas are like the empire, right? And he takes that, and he takes the brunt of that, and he does it anyway. And one day we're all going to be grateful for the fact that he took that chance.
Oh, I'm never not grateful. If there's lacrosse on, I'm excited about it.
Very
Like, I think
true.
we all are. We love the game. So,
Yeah.
like, we're going to watch it, but it's just, I mean, some people have their allegiances and some
Yeah.
people are just like,
Hate
hey,
the
I'm happy
division.
no matter
I
what. So
know,
it's
that's how I
okay.
am.
And I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's how it is. Like, there's the AL and what's the other one in baseball, like the National League. Yeah. So there's those two leagues and you argue over which one's better, but at the end of the day, it's just great for lacrosse that there's more of it.
Well, it's like, LeBron and Jordan arguments all the time. It's like, you know what?
Yeah.
It is okay to just enjoy basketball.
Yes.
It is, yeah. You can have
You don't
that
have to
debate
argue.
once in a while, but like every day, God, ESPN, give it a rest.
It's like,
Talk
who
about
do you
Greg
think's great?
B.
I don't care who's greater. I just saw LeBron dunk on a dude and it was cool to watch.
Yeah, it was cool.
You know?
I think because we got to get you out of here
For that
Ravens kickoff, so we're gonna move on to some segments here. I'll kick it off with who's your favorite offensive player of all time?
Ooh, man, that is tough.
I played with a lot of great ones. So
I did, and you know what, man? Like, I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna go with a couple because Gary Gate was the first lacrosse player I ever watched. We used to go to the Wings games every Friday night, and I just remember being like, "This guy is like, what is this?"
Yeah.
Like, so he's like the GOAT to me. I think John Grant Jr. I got to play with, and I played with him and enjoyed his success. And he literally knocked me out single-handedly out of the playoffs like 5 times when he didn't play with me. And he's just a beauty of a person. So I love John Grant. And then, when we look at just nostalgia, Jake Berge. Jake Berge was so incredible to watch. He was just this rough and tumble guy. His dad played for the Eagles. Like, I'm a Philly guy growing up, not an Eagles fan, but we won't get into that. And like, just, Jake Berge's just the man. He's down to earth guy. And so there's 3 of my favorite offensive players for sure.
Awesome. Now we're going to switch to the defensive side. Who are your favorite defensive players of all time? Can be a goalie too.
I'm gonna guess Rick Beardsley.
I guess that.
So defensive, like I said, like I watched indoor lacrosse, but I knew nothing about college or anything until way down the line because, I was new to the sport as far as playing it and watching it and stuff. But when I look at defensive players that I have seen in person, there was nothing that I've ever seen like Brody Merrill and playing in college. Him and Kyle Sweeney, which was unfair because Kyle graduated from Georgetown and they were in Penn State's conference. So we were like, oh, thank God, Sweeney's out of here. And then it was like, Brody Merrill now. You're like, no. Those 2 guys, I've never seen anything like it. And they can play close, they can play LSM, and they can completely take over a game. And then selfishly, I'm just going to say Drew Adams is the greatest goaltender I've ever seen. And I played with him in the high school, college, and the pro and international level. And I've gotten to see his entire career highlights. And he was so good. It was like Revis Island when he was at his prime in football.
Yeah.
Like, he would make things look so easy that you would take it for granted. Like, after playing on teams with him for so long, he would make saves that were literally miraculous. And everyone would be like, great save, Drew. And then I just move on. And, it was like mundane at the point. So yeah, he's the greatest goalie I've ever seen.
All right. Well, we have a kind of a weird one. Some people don't understand the question, so I'll give it a bit of a preface. I'll say it, but
I'll get weird.
This is the penalty box. What's your worst take? So
Some people don't understand what that means.
Yeah, like what do you say that people are just always like, all right, that's just not right, Greg?
Something I believe that people are going to look at me and be like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Well, I experienced it this summer as a face-off man. I was like, yeah, like when in 2015, they said we need to take the ball and stop carrying the ball in the back of the stick.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, we should. They're like, but you just like you're a face-off guy and you're breaking all the. I'm like, no, it's terrible for the sport. We got to get rid of it.
Oh, it's not fair at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, this sucks. I was like, the ball's just stuck in the back of your stick. Like, you can't tell if you did it because you're talented or if you have an illegal stick. Like, what's the point? So that was definitely my worst take. And it's funny because, you would think like, oh, is it a sports take or whatever? It's like, I don't Twitter argue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure a Steelers fan will tweet at me today at some point. I'm like, I don't get the point of that.
I'm not getting into this with you, sir.
Yeah, I don't care about, like, neither one of us play for these teams.
Yeah, exactly.
Fired up.
That's fair.
Yeah, but that's probably my worst take. People hated on me for that.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, I agree with it. I don't hate on you for that. I hated watching, because it was just like, all right, well, there was 3 seconds between goal and face-off because a face-off guy just pinched, ran down the field, and flipped it. And I mean, those are.
I'm fine for.
And this is the other bad take that people hate on me, but now they have to deal with it, is when they wanted to go to SNG only, standing neutral grip.
Yeah.
Which the committee used that term, but it's a term that the FOA came up with. We were like, this is actually going to be a more dynamic, faster style of face-off, and you guys are going to be healthier because of it. And it was like, how can you say that? Kill him!
Get him!
But that's the truth.
They got their pitchforks out, and there was a mob outside your house.
Oh, God. My son, I know your son worked hard. He'll be okay.
Yeah.
But like we had mentioned, taking the ball out of the back of the stick, people wrote soliloquies about how everyone's going to get a concussion now because you have to scoop a ground ball. Kids literally don't remember that.
Part of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't remember it. They're like, oh, you used to be able to do that? I'm like, yeah, it was only like 5 years ago, but you guys forgot already. Same thing with this.
That's my favorite thing. When Diggs talked about the horn like 3-4 weeks ago, that was hilarious. Kids are like, what? There was a horn?
You could just yell horn?
Yeah, you could just anytime, just horn, and then you had 15 seconds. It was crazy.
Our sport changes fast, man. Like, women, you guys just got like hard boundaries like 2 years ago.
Yeah, women's just got a shot clock. I think it was the year before my freshman year. And mesh. Like, being like me growing up playing this game, like I've watched it change so much. Just like I only started playing my freshman year of high school, and like it's literally changed so much.
Yeah, but you know what? Women's lacrosse is like, you guys are just more organized, man. Of course, women haven't figured out, but they're like, man, this team kind of stinks. We should probably put a shot clock in. Okay, let's have a meeting. Shot clock done.
Yeah,
it gets done.
Guys lacrosse. It's like we've just watched for 15 years the pro league have a shot clock and it's better. It's like, yeah, I don't know though.
I don't know about that because you see, if I score a goal, I want to hold that ball. Like, yeah. So,
Coach was like, it wasn't my personal idea, so I don't know if I want to do it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
In the last segment, I don't remember what it's called, but it's what's the worst penalty you've ever done or have had done to you?
The late and high.
The late and high.
Yeah. Because I bet you took some of those late and high checks.
High school lacrosse in Philly in like the late 90s was bloodbath. But I was notorious for, I played the top spot on man up. So anytime the guy threw the ball from X over the top and it was too high, the ball rolls towards the midline.
Yes, of course.
And I would run right past the ball and smoke the other team's attacker who had his head in.
Just for fun.
It would happen a few times a year. And everybody on my team knew it was coming, and no one cared. So that used to be the penalty that I would get. And then, of course, I think every face-off guy's biggest nightmare, which won't happen anymore, but your head getting absolutely mangled, and then you score a goal, and then they immediately check your stick when your head's like this. That happened to me a couple times in the pros, and it happened in the World Games. You're just like, as soon as you hand it to the ref, you're like, the stick's just caked in mud. You're like, we're getting a 1-minute penalty.
Yeah.
This is going to be brutal. Yeah.
Well, we get our goal taken away for that. That's annoying.
Yeah, our goal gets taken away,
and
then you got to sit in the penalty box, and then you take your stick, and you're just looking at your stick like, I'm sorry, man.
Was somebody getting me a softball?
Spend like an hour waiting on me and my family for it, you know? So.
Somebody get me a softball real quick, Jam that thing in there.
Yeah, man.
Car question.
Yeah, so we'll move on to, because we got to get you out of here, but we'll just ask 2 quick questions that we ask people. are you a car guy? And if you are, do you have a dream car, or do you already own it?
I'm completely, absolutely not a car guy at all.
It's okay.
I like the look of SUVs and trucks.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I've tried. I'm not a car guy.
You're just not into them. Yeah. Anything with an engine, I'm fascinated.
It's like, I got a 69 Mustang. I'm like, that's old.
Yeah.
For you, man.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have air conditioning, but whatever.
No, those are usually people trying to like buy their childhood back or something. But I just love engines.
Is a massive car guy, and all my friends are, and I just listen to them talk, and I'm like, that's sick.
Just going way over your head.
Sweet, man. Wow, you got some new calipers? Ooh, I know what that means.
Yeah. I'm like, that's cool, man. You could probably go still the speed limit because you're only allowed to, but okay.
Yeah. So our last question for today is, what do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done?
You kind of touched on it some, but yeah.
Yeah,
one day when I'm gone, I just want people to remember that I cared about the sport. I played as hard as I could. I coach as hard as I can. I try to give as much knowledge as I can away for free. If you go to my YouTube channel, I'm basically giving you the whole FOA system in a box. And I enjoyed it. I appreciated what I had because, I never thought I'd have all of this. I never thought I'd have, fans or people that cared about what I did at all. So I'm just grateful for all of it. And I hope people just remember that.
Absolutely. And I think you're doing a pretty good job of leaving your mark on the lacrosse community.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 helmets behind you are enough of a testament to your lacrosse skills. So, I mean, yeah, I think you'll be remembered as one of the guys who changed the game for a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So
we're gonna wrap it up.
We're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. We really do appreciate Greg coming on. Thank you, listener, for listening to another episode of Low to High Podcast. You can find us at Low to High Podcast on Instagram and at Low to High Pod on Twitter. We are also at www.lowtohighpod.com, where you can buy the stickers that if you go to us on YouTube, you can see right now. You can also see Greg and watch as his shirt goes from dark gray to light gray as he kind of dries out from that workout he did before our episode. But yeah, we really appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. Thank you again to the listener. Please subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your platform of choice. And once again, thanks, Greg. We really appreciate it. This has been a great episode.